Yeah. The first question is about the directive for visa extensions, which unfortunately was not part of this press conference, but I realize it's very important. And I think I've made many statements about this issue. For some reason, they are not reaching the depth of the minds of people. I said it was very unfortunate that such a directive was issued, because most of the issues on that directive were already happening. And this is what I explained. If you apply for a visa in Home Affairs, whatever type of visa, and you have not yet got a response, but when you apply, you are given a receipt. If the response, if the time of that visa expires, the time for which that visa was issued, if it expires before you get the response, the receipt works as an automatic extension. In other words, you don't have to worry that, oh, Home Affairs is delayed, now my visa has expired, what am I going to do? When you've already applied, because we have already got a receipt, that receipt will work as an extension until Home Affairs responds to you to say yes or no. If they say no, then it means your visa expired, there's trouble. If they say yes, then you get a new visa. But before that response, the receipt, just the production of a receipt. Now, this directive was issued, unfortunately, because of the belief that we have got a new baby on the block, the Border Management Authority and the border guards, who may not understand these systems. They were trying to explain to them that, look, when a person comes with a receipt, don't stop them, etc. I saw in some newspapers or in some media houses where they're saying the border guards have totally refused, that they don't follow what the minister is saying, they followed a directive. And it surprised me which border guard will say that, because we agreed on these issues with the BMA commissioner. He was part of it, that commissioner. We saw it that we issued this directive. Please just inform your border guards. It was supposed to be an internal matter. Anybody having a receipt cannot be arrested or cannot be stopped from going through the border and back, because they've got a receipt showing that they've applied. The fact that they didn't get a response yet is not their fault. And now when we read that some border guards say no, we don't go by what the minister said in parliament or in a press conference. We go by the directive. When the directive was issued by the department and was spoken to their commander, we get surprised where that came from. The issue from Romain, removing the working visa, the remote working visa replacing the long-term visitors visa. No, it doesn't at all. The remote working visa is specifically, you are a British, an American, a German, France, Indian or Chinese, etc. You are employed by that company in this area. As I'm saying, most of the areas, I'm just giving an example, will be IT, will be auditing, will be other technical area, finance, for instance. You don't have to be in that country to audit their books. You can audit them wherever you are. Now, what is happening with the remote working visa? There are people who will say, look, I'm working in the US, I'm earning in dollars, I'm earning $1 million. And if I'm in South Africa, $1 million is much, much worse than if it's in the US. I'll be able to get value of my money. So I'm going to stay in South Africa for 6 months and work remotely from there. Now, what do we offer them to come here? Because the belief is that they are going to spend their money here. Imagine if you earn $1 million in South Africa, how much is it? You are going to employ some people, stay in hotels, stay eat in some restaurants and do that. So what we offer you for the first 6 months of that remote working visa, you won't pay tax to South Africa. But if you want to stay more than 6 months, then you start paying tax. Whether you are paying tax in America or not is none of our business. It's between you and them. But we were saying we are giving you a remote working visa to come to South Africa. You will work for 6 months. You need to pay tax. But if you want to stay more than that, we'll still allow you. But the tax kicks in. So it's not replacing any long-term or visitors visa, specifically for this type of people. And it can't be gotten by anybody, only people who can work remotely, because not every work can be done remotely anywhere in the world. I'm sure you may be aware that it has been for a long time now that many big companies in the US send their books to India for auditing, for people who are working there, and they are auditors, and they don't need as much money as they will be in the US because life there is a little bit cheaper. They've been doing that for ages. So we are just formalizing it by saying, look, come with your employment from whichever part of the country, stay here in South Africa, spend your money here, you will help to create jobs. The question from Hillary, thank you very much for this question. I've also tried my best, Hillary, to clarify this question. I don't seem to be winning. I don't know whether Yusuf and the DG have got the information we're looking for, but we repeated this many times. We do not have any backlog on critical skills visas. And this has been reported many times, that the country is missing critical skills because we take a long time. We don't have a backlog on critical skills visas. I told you how easy is it to get the critical skills visa. All we have to do is, here is my profession. Is it on the Gazette? Tick. Here is my letter of appointment. This company in South Africa wants me. Tick. And you bring them to Home Affairs. Why should there be a delay about that? Now, the general work visa, I told you where the problem is, and it was no longer being done. That you have got to go to the Department of Labor, prove to the department that you searched all over South Africa and you couldn't find any person who can perform that work. You want to look outside the borders of the country. That obviously will take some bit of time, but you can go to the restaurant, domestic, etc. Quite a number of people who are working did not even go through this. And so we are saying it's a legal requirement, which seems to be difficult or even difficult to enforce. That's why we are removing it, Hillary, and say, let's use the point system. And in the point system, as I'm saying, I've got difficulty in explaining because, not that I don't know it, because we have not yet gazetted it. But we are going to look at issues like, if we give you this general work visa, what's your age? I've seen in the papers that they are complaining that the age is an intention to remove older people. Very far from that. You'll see it when it comes. In fact, you'll be surprised what the issue of the age means. Secondly, what are your qualifications? Your qualifications is not necessarily a critical skill, but are you bringing a qualification here which we need? What if there are so many South Africans with that qualification? Why should we allow you? What is your experience? Should we believe you to come and learn here when there are so many youngsters who have just qualified from universities? Should we allow you to come and compete with them? Or are you bringing some form of experience? Those are some of the things that we are going to consider. But as I'm saying, I'm just giving you snippets because this is still going to be gazetted. Now, the backlog which you are talking about, which is confusing, which we changes all the time. This backlog is mostly about dependent visas, spouses and relatives. Now we are agreeing, Hillary, that if I get my critical skills visa to come to South Africa, and yet my wife doesn't get any spousal visa, my children don't get study visas, etc., it might make it difficult for me to come because I'm being split from my family. We have accepted that, and we would like to correct them by saying next time, when you give you a critical skills visa, we must consider your whole family because you are attached to it. But otherwise, the backlog is on the dependency visa. And I'm going to give Yusuf some bit of time to explain why is it developing such a backlog. We've got a situation in South Africa where in our laws you are saying if you become a spouse of a South African, female or male, if you become a spouse, then you can apply for a spousal visa in South Africa. Unfortunately, we are reaching a situation where spouses are just created, where they don't exist. They are created where they don't exist. I'm repeating. There is something called a notarial contract, which is allowed by South African law, where you come with a partner and you go to a notary general. Some lawyers are notary generals, to write you a contract that you are staying together as partners, and you bring that to Home Affairs. They regard you as a spouse. The number of notarial contract is increasing day by day. But when we send immigration officers to visit such families, they never found any spouse. They don't find any, and yet we've got a document here that we must issue a spousal visa because there's a notarial contract. And what is alarming us, these notarial contracts are growing in leap and bounds here. That's why you are finding this thing changes. This backlog is changing every day because the notarials are growing. And now you can imagine immigration officers having to visit that family in the morning to see if there's really a spouse there. They don't find a spouse. They go again in the afternoon. There's no spouse. They go again in the evening where all spouses are supposed to be home. After work, there's no spouse. And they repeat that for 6 months, there's no spouse. What are we supposed to do? So this is a conundrum and a problem that we are going to have to change. Unfortunately, it's in the law. And it's causing this backlog that grows in leaps and bounds. The backlogs about the critical skills, general work, and business, it doesn't usually, we don't usually suffer that. But the reason that is people who have got critical skills who are complaining is because maybe it's their spouses. That one really, we shouldn't be giving them a tough time. Because yes, I've been given a letter of appointment by this company. I would like to come with my family, and then the family has to apply for relative visa, spousal visa, dependency visa. So we want to put them together. Yusuf, I don't know. I think you are able to add something here on the issue of critical skills, general work, business, in terms of the backlog.
Thank you very much, Minister, DG, and members of the media. The Minister is absolutely correct. Less than 10% of applications in both visas as well as permanent residence is in the categories of business, general work, as well as critical skills. So that's a small percentage of applications we receive in this regard. And those categories is also part of our annual performance plan. So it's prioritized. You would note that in our performance plan, the turnaround time for critical visa is also 4 weeks only. Apart from the 8 weeks for normal visas, we shortened that turnaround time. So we put a lot of focus, and we have a dedicated team dealing with these three categories, as indicated, because they are directly impacting on the growth in the economy, the creation of jobs, bringing business into South Africa. So that's where our focus are. So about almost 90%, if not more, of the applications in the backlog, as Minister has indicated, is in the relative category and the spousal category. There's a lot of abuse in this regard. And unfortunately, what delays the processing of those applications is the existence of the marriage. That's very difficult to determine. So many times the spouses do not live together. It's difficult for our resources to go and do house visits, as Minister has indicated. And even the contact numbers in applications are not in existence. So that makes our task extremely difficult. And you could say that we could reject all of those, but then they become appeal cases, and we just move the backlog from applications to appeals, which really does not help. So it's an enormous task we have. The good thing that Minister, that we have now brought on board is for provinces also to assist with the backlog. As Minister indicated, one of my other tasks is in a province, so we are coordinating also extra resources from the provinces to focus on this backlog so that the incoming work can be attended to by adjudicators so that we can balance the backlog with incoming work and not create a new backlog. So it's a tough task we have. We're also looking at getting assistance for the verification of documents because that's mostly where the challenge are. A bank, for example, if you want to verify a bank statement, the bank will tell you upright that they don't appoint staff to verify documents for Home Affairs. They have tight budgets as well and also efficient in the allocation of the staff. So we wait a long time for banks to provide verification. And we cannot, and I must repeat, we cannot accept any document on face value and then finalize that because a bank statement in paper says there is money. We have to do a verification. This is just some of the documents must verify. And that's where the challenge is. And with backlog applications as well, for example, a spousal visa of 3 years ago that's in backlog now, you most likely find that to verify that marriage is even more difficult to trace the couples. So let me just say that on the statistics, Minister, unless DJ have it, but I think it's best if we have detailed statistics. And because we're sitting with the media, it's better if we, by tomorrow, provide that in absolute detail, the correct numbers with the percentages of approvals versus rejections. So I'd propose that we rather provide statistics tomorrow, Minister. But as Minister has indicated, it's a backlog that's coming down. It's a number that we have projectized. A team is working on that. The DJ has projectized the backlog. 2 separate teams, one dealing with incoming work, and one focused on backlogs, including provincial officials being also brought on board to assist in this regard. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Yusuf. Yes, Hilary, the summary of what he's saying is we don't usually develop a backlog on critical skills, general work, and business. We don't usually do that. The DG is just telling me, is it critical skills? Is this 30?
Yeah, it was 30 this morning.
That he had 30 this morning, as he has finalized them before coming here. Because I told you, if it's critical skills, you need only 2 things. Does this profession appear on the gazetted list? 1. 2, is there a letter of employment from an employer? That's all you need. That's why you could finish those 30 within a short space of time. But you may find that they go to the press, Hilary, and say there is a delay because they are speaking about the spouse, not themselves. Themselves is not an issue. The spouse, maybe, and the children and all that. That's why we are developing the backlog. And I'm saying it's unfortunate that in the Act, they are separated. Spousal visa is section what? Section 11.6 or something like that. Yes, and some spouses, there is a section, I think it's 11.6 something, where it says a spousal visa with a right to work. There are spouses who say, I want to accompany my spouse, but I must be given a right to work in South Africa. And with this high rate of unemployment, we found it difficult to allow that. And of course, it becomes a backlog. And I am aware of many countries in the world where the person will tell you, I'm here accompanying my husband, but I'm not allowed to work. If it happens in South Africa, it gets a very ugly term and all that and attacks and all that. But there are countries that are doing that to protect their job markets, the inhabitants of that country, not to have a lot of competition in as far as work is concerned. We have already given the spouse who is coming with critical skills. I mean, the person who has applied for a critical skill. Now we have got to give the wife, we have got relative and all that. These are the things that are difficult, which we think we are going to change the Act. But the summary is the backlog that you are talking about is about spouses, relatives, and dependents visas, not about the person who wants the critical skills visa themselves or the business visa. Because the department, the DTI, usually lodge a complaint. If somebody wants to establish a business here, firstly, they apply to DTI and they've got their list. When we delay to give them visas, DTI complains. They write us a letter and send us a list and say these people want to establish businesses and you are delaying. So it's not easy to develop backlogs in those areas. Memolemo Motwa, the verification of qualifications, whether it's done by the department or the employer, it will be done by the employer if it's the trusted employer, if it's in the trusted employer scheme. They must verify and tell us that we have verified is true. But as I said, the trusted employer scheme is given on a big proviso. If we do a random check and found that we have misrepresented the facts, we have told us that this qualification is equivalent to this and that, and you find that is not true, we're not going to accept that. When you say, no, I made a mistake, you have got to be sure, because we take it at your word. That's why it's called trusted employer. You are a trusted human beings, and we are giving you this visa based on the trust between you and them. So if you are not sure, you better not present it and say it's trusted. But for those who are not trusted employers, yes, we still have to verify. And the verification is done with SAQA, as you know. It takes a long time because it's outside the department. We write to SAQA and say, can you verify this qualification for us? It takes a long time. I happen to know it because even in government, sometimes you take a very long time to hire a DD, a DDG, a chief director. It can be taken to cabinet for DG and DDG for the cabinet to approve, because we have got no proof of qualification from SAQA. Sometimes we wait for 6 weeks, even 8 weeks waiting for SAQA. And it's one of the problems that Home Affairs is faced with other employers. But as I'm saying, if you are a trusted employer, if you have to wait, it will be your own, on your own volition. It means you did not acquire these documents quick enough, and that's why you are waiting. You can no longer blame us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. DG, I believe you want to make some additions on the trusted employer.
Thank you, Tabo. Good afternoon, Minister. Good afternoon, members of the media. So that unit that the minister was referring to that deals with critical skills, it's the corporate accounts unit, Hillary, and they process all the applications. But also to say, Minister, with regards to the trusted employer scheme, it's a one-stop shop. So you've got the DTI as part of that team, you've got the Department of Labor as part of that team, and you've got the Department of Home Affairs. So it stops you from going to the DTI to lodge an application. It stops you from going to the DEL to lodge an application. So they assemble at the Department of Home Affairs and process, which is why we're able to finalize 109 applications within a very short space of time. And of course, out of the 109, 72 of those companies were confirmed as part of the trusted employer scheme. Now, what do they do on a daily basis? They also check with our missions all over the world to check for applications that have been lodged. I just thought I must add that for your time. Thank you.